An old couple named Larry and Joan are driving to a gender reveal party, but they keep fighting about silly things. They're so busy arguing that they almost hit another car. When they finally get to their son's house, Larry notices the bandage on Joan's arm. He covers it with her sleeve and whispers that she needs to tell everyone about her sickness. But Joan says she wants to wait one more day because today is a special party. They're finding out if their grandchild will be a boy or a girl. The family is so happy to see them. They joke about how Larry and Joan have been married for 65 whole years. Then someone brings out an old box of pictures from the basement. One photo shows Joan on her wedding day, but not with Larry, with her first husband Luke, who died in a war long ago. While everyone is looking at photos, Larry starts eating some pretzels. But suddenly something goes wrong. A pretzel gets stuck in his throat and he can't breathe. Larry falls to the floor and everything goes black. Seconds later, Larry opens his eyes and he's sitting on a train. Pink sparkly confetti is falling all around him. A little kid wearing a suit way too big for him walks by and says, "Bet you weren't expecting this?" When the train stops, Larry gets off and sees tons of people wearing hospital gowns. He follows them to a big crowded place called the Junction. Everyone keeps telling him weird things he doesn't understand. So he goes to the front desk. "I've been kidnapped," Larry tells the lady there, but she just smiles and says, "No, sir, you haven't. Just wait here until your AC comes to get you." Hours pass and most people leave. Larry falls asleep in a chair. A woman named Anna says she's his AC, his afterlife coordinator. "That means you died," she explains. Larry doesn't want to believe it. But then he remembers the pink confetti and realizes his grandchild is a girl. Anna makes him look in a mirror and Larry gasps. He's young again. His old wrinkly face is gone. Anna explains that when people come to the Junction, they turn back into their happiest selves. As Anna walks him through the building, Larry keeps saying, "I need to go back to my wife." Anna gets so annoyed that she actually slaps him to make him stop complaining. "This isn't heaven," she says. "It's just a quick stop between being alive and forever." Right then, they hear a loud alarm. Larry sees security guards tackling someone to the ground. Anna points to some red doors and warns, "Never, ever go through those." Then she takes Larry to a small room where he'll stay. She gives him some booklets about different kinds of forever places, called eternities. There are clothes in the closet, all his favorite outfits. Larry changes clothes and tries to watch TV, but every single channel is just ads for different eternities. So he goes exploring and finds even more booths advertising eternities everywhere. Eventually, Larry finds a bar and sits down. Right away, a pretty woman sits next to him and starts flirting. "I'm married," Larry says, but she won't stop talking about a fun eternity she wants him to pick. Luckily, the bartender tells her that advertising isn't allowed in the bar, so she leaves. The bartender's name is Luke. Larry asks if he's an angel, but Luke says no. He's just a soul who got a job so he could stay at the Junction. Luke explains the important rules. Once you pick an eternity, you can never change it. You can never visit other eternities either. And if you break the rules or stay too long, they'll send you to the void, a place that's completely dark and empty forever. Larry tells Luke about Joan's cancer and how he feels terrible for leaving her alone. The next morning, Anna jumps on Larry's bed to wake him up. His head hurts from drinking too much. He asks why some souls have jobs here. Anna says some people haven't accepted that they're dead yet, and others are waiting for people they love. The worst ones are people who just can't choose an eternity. Larry asks if Joan will die soon, but Anna says they can't know that. So Larry decides to wait for her. Anna says he can get a janitor job after 7 days, but he'll have to move to a tiny basement room. Days go by and Joan still hasn't shown up. Anna tells Larry it might take months. So Larry decides to pick an eternity that Joan will love. That night, he writes her a long letter explaining everything. At the same time, back in the living world, Joan's cancer gets worse and she dies. She wakes up on the same train Larry did. The next morning, Anna is taking Larry to his chosen eternity. He begs her to give his letter to Joan when she arrives, but Anna says that's against the rules. They hug goodbye and Larry starts walking down to the train station. But then, on the escalator, Larry looks up and can't believe his eyes. There's Joan. She just got off the train, but she doesn't see him. Larry's heart is pounding as he pushes past people and runs back up to the Junction. Joan is staring at her young face in a mirror when Larry finds her. They hug so tight. Joan already figured out that she's dead, and she scolds Larry for dying such a silly way, choking on a pretzel. But then a man named Ryan, who is Joan's coordinator, pulls her away. He brings her to someone else, her first husband, Luke, who's been waiting for 67 years. Joan and Luke hug and cry tears of happiness. But then Larry interrupts because he wants to take Joan to his eternity. Suddenly, Joan starts breathing really fast and freaking out. She realizes she has to choose which husband to spend forever with. After she changes into a nice dress, he tries to help her think about her choices. Then Luke knocks on the door, but Joan is so scared that she slams it in his face. Ryan thinks Luke is the better choice because he waited so long, so he leaves them alone. Meanwhile, Larry is complaining to Anna, who says Luke is super handsome. But Larry argues that he gave Joan 65 years of marriage and children. Anna says that's emotional blackmail. Joan and Luke go for a walk around the Junction. but things feel awkward. Suddenly, two guards run past them chasing someone who's trying to escape their eternity. One guard stops to say hi to Luke, and when he sees Joan, he recognizes her. Luke talks about her all the time, apparently. After the guards leave, Luke explains the rules to Joan. Then he tells her he loves her and that he thought about her every single day. Luke tries to kiss her, but Joan pulls away because she feels sick. "I need time to think," she says, and runs away. Minutes later, Larry bursts into Joan's room with tons of brochures about eternities they could pick together. But Joan yells at him, "I need time." Then she tells him that after he died, her best friend died too. Larry actually gets happy about this because he never liked that friend. Joan starts to cry, so Larry remembers something that used to help: squatting exercises. As an old lady, Joan couldn't squat anymore, so being able to do it again makes her smile. Then Larry eats pretzels and almost chokes again, which makes Joan freak out even more. She says she needs to clear her head. Larry apologizes and says they can talk tomorrow. When he tries to sleep in her bed, Joan kicks him out. Larry tries to go back to his room, but his 7 days are up, so he has to move to that tiny basement room. On the way, he sees a poster for a show by a dead singer named Dean Martin. Joan loves him, so Larry asks Anna to set up a special concert. But when they arrive the next day, the singer acts weird and trips on the stairs. It's not Dean Martin at all. It's just someone pretending to be him. Larry goes to complain to Anna, but while he's gone, the fake singer starts hitting on Joan. Luke quickly comes over, drags the guy away and punches him. Then with Ryan's help, Luke tries to give Joan flowers, but Larry immediately interrupts to complain more. The two men start arguing until Joan snaps. "Stop!" She yells so loud that everyone freezes. Later, she brings Anna and Ryan to her room and yells at them too. She demands that they find a solution to this mess. The coordinators make a super long phone call trying to get special permission. Finally, they have an answer. The coordinators bring both husbands to Joan's room. They announce that because this situation is so unusual, they got special passes. Joan will be allowed to visit 2 eternities, one with each husband. After spending time with both of them, she'll make her final choice. The men start arguing again and almost fight, so Joan has to yell again to stop them. She says they'll flip a coin to see who goes first. They almost start another argument, so Ryan has to step in. Larry flips the coin and Luke wins. On the train to Luke's eternity, Joan and Luke remember the old days. They smile at each other, but things still feel strange. When they arrive, it's a beautiful place. Tall mountains, clear blue sky, and a welcoming forest all around. As they explore together, they start having fun. They even hold hands. That evening, they have dinner at a restaurant. But Joan keeps talking about her children and grandchildren, which makes Luke uncomfortable. He says it doesn't bother him, but really, what bothers him is that he couldn't have children with her. Still, he's glad she had a good life. Joan tells him she did wait for him for a while, but eventually she had to move on with her life. After dinner, Luke takes Joan to a special building called the Archives. Every eternity has one, and it lets people watch all their memories from when they were alive. Luke and Joan watch all their special moments together. Their first date, their first kiss, their first time being close, their wedding day, and their sad goodbye before Luke left for war. Joan tells Luke how much she missed him, and they kiss. But then the memories keep playing, and Luke has to watch Larry propose to Joan. Luke stomps out of the building angry. He says Larry took advantage of a sad, grieving woman. Joan tries to explain it wasn't like that, but Luke won't listen. Meanwhile, back at the Junction, Larry is complaining about Luke to Anna. He says Luke always tells everyone he died in the war to make himself look like a hero. Larry is afraid he can't compete with such a perfect memory. Anna tells him he needs to remind Joan why she fell in love with him. But Larry doesn't even know why Joan loves him, so he decides to find someone who might know. He tracks down Joan's best friend Karen, who looks pretty old. Karen explains that her happiest days came after her husband died, because she could finally be herself and love women. She admits she didn't like Larry at first, but he grew on her over time. Larry asks why Joan fell in love with him. Karen says she doesn't know exactly, but she's sure he made Joan very happy. After talking to Karen, Larry goes to Luke's room to snoop around. He sees marks on the wall counting all the days since Luke died, and drawings of Joan in a notebook. Suddenly, Luke comes back. He accuses Larry of tricking Joan and says she would have been happier alone. The two men get in a really silly, weak fight. During the struggle, Larry's letter to Joan falls out of his pocket. When they both collapse on the floor, Larry admits he didn't know about Luke when he proposed. But Luke points out that Larry proposed at the dock, the special place where he and Joan always went together. At the Junction, Joan is overwhelmed by all the eternity booths. So Ryan takes her to a quiet hallway full of signs for eternities that don't exist anymore. When she says she still doesn't know what to do, Ryan tells her Luke seems like the best choice, but it's her decision to make. The next day, Larry takes Joan to a beach eternity. It's very popular, so it's super crowded. They talk for a while and almost kiss, but then a boy hits Larry with his beach ball and tells them about his horrible death. Yikes. Larry and Joan get on a boat to enjoy the calm ocean. Larry asks about his funeral and says sorry for not being there when she died. He also says their kids would be happy to see them together again. But Joan feels like he's trying to manipulate her, and they start arguing. Joan reminds him she's in a really hard situation, and Larry promises he would have waited for her as long as Luke did. When they get back to the beach, Joan wants to go into the archives with Larry, but he refuses. He thinks a person can get lost in old memories and wants to protect her. But Joan thinks he's just scared of what they'll find there. They sit on the beach and talk about their first date. Larry explains he always wanted to make her life better. Back at the Junction, Luke finds Larry's letter and reads it. Meanwhile, Joan and Larry come back from their date and share a kiss. Larry says he doesn't care which eternity they pick, as long as they're together. But then Luke shows up with the coordinators. He tells Joan that Larry broke into his room. He gives her the letter. And now Joan knows that Larry was going to leave before he saw her. He only stayed because he spotted her at the last second. Another big argument starts, and Joan calls Larry selfish. Larry yells back that he was always her second choice, and tries to make Luke look bad. Luke screams in frustration and admits he's had a few girlfriends during the last 67 years, but at least he waited for Joan. The men both demand that Joan choose right now, but Joan says she needs more time. The coordinators have to drag the husbands away. A little later, Karen visits Joan with a drink. Joan finally breaks down and cries. Karen comforts her and takes her out to different fun booths to cheer her up. Joan keeps drinking and complaining about her situation, so Karen reminds her that she's dead now. That means she doesn't owe anything to anyone anymore and can have a fresh start. At the bar, Larry and Luke are also drinking way too much. But surprisingly, the alcohol helps them become friends. They compliment each other and even say that Joan doesn't deserve them. The next morning, Joan wakes up with a terrible headache, but she's made her decision. She calls both husbands together and says she's lucky to have them both. Maybe everything happened the way it was supposed to. But no matter who she picks, she'll feel guilty forever. So Joan announces, "I choose neither of you." She leaves with tears streaming down her face. Joan gets ready to leave and spend her eternity with Karen instead. Meanwhile, Larry tells Luke that he was right. Larry did propose at the dock because Luke was always the perfect husband he couldn't compete with. Larry wonders if he choked on that pretzel because he saw the wedding picture of Joan and Luke. Luke admits he's very jealous of the life Larry got to build with Joan. Then the guys share why their bodies look this way now. Luke looks like the day he and Joan talked about starting a family. Larry looks like when Joan was pregnant with their second child. Suddenly, Larry realizes something important and runs out of the room. At the train station, Larry finds Joan on the train and begs her to get off for one last talk. He points something out. Joan's hair is long now, but she always wore it short during their marriage. That means she was happiest with Luke, not him. So Larry tells her she should go with Luke. Joan tries to deny it at first, but Larry insists it's the right thing to do. They both cry as they hug one last time. Sometime later, Luke and Joan are on a train to their eternity together. Larry is still wandering around the Junction because he doesn't know where to go. He discovers that Anna and Ryan are dating again. Anna talks to Larry alone and says she's proud of him. She explains that she chose to stay at the Junction because helping lost souls gave her purpose, and Larry helped her remember why she loves her job. In the mountain eternity, Joan and Luke start their new life together. They go on fun dates and make friends with other souls. That night, they finally get to be close, but after Luke falls asleep, Joan starts feeling some doubts. She sneaks out to the archives to watch the memory of the day she met Larry. Over the next few days, Luke keeps planning activities with other souls, but Joan doesn't enjoy them. Every single night, she sneaks back to the archives to watch more memories with Larry. The person who works at the archives tells her it's not healthy to spend so much time there, she needs to move on. One night, Luke says, "This is truly the perfect life," but Joan doesn't know what to say. The next morning, Luke announces he's booked another activity. Finally, Joan breaks down and cries. "I made a mistake choosing you," she tells him. Luke gets angry and starts yelling. Joan explains that yes, she was happiest with Luke, but only because it was young. Foolish love without the hard parts of life like bills, jobs, and kids. Real love should include the bad moments too. She also says that Luke fell in love with the girl from 67 years ago and never moved on. But Joan has changed. She's not that same person anymore. Joan announces she's going to try to go back to Larry, even if it means breaking the rules and getting caught. She tells Luke through tears that she did love him, but he walks away. Hours later, Joan is making a plan to escape, practicing with a knife. After thinking hard about everything, Luke comes back and agrees to help her. They go to the archives together, and Luke pretends to have a breakdown in front of the worker there. While the man tries to comfort Luke, Joan sneaks inside. Then Luke also goes in as a normal visitor. He and Joan watch their wedding memory one last time and say their final goodbye. Joan sneaks behind the memory wall and goes through a red door. The door takes her to a hallway filled with her childhood memories. Suddenly, she hears an alarm and guards coming, so she runs. She finds a door in a memory where two soldiers told her about Luke's death. A washing machine door drops her into a memory of her arguing with Larry. The guards are still chasing her, so Joan blocks the door with a chair and runs upstairs. There, she sees her old self. Old Joan says Larry's name before young Joan tries to hide under the bed. The guards are right behind her, but she keeps crawling until she pops out on the train tracks. By walking down the dark tunnel, Joan manages to get back to the junction. Joan tries to ask about Larry at the front desk, but then she sees her own face on a wanted poster. She has to run again. In the booth area, she bumps into Ryan and Anna, who quickly hide her and tell the guards she went the other way. Then Joan asks them which eternity Larry chose, but their answer shocks her. She finds Larry in the bar. He's working as a bartender now. They share a drink together, and Joan asks him to come with her. She warns him it might be dangerous because she's a fugitive, but Larry agrees to do it anyway. Moments later, the couple arrives at an eternity that looks exactly like the neighborhood where they lived their entire married life together. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching!